Today, let's talk about The Simpsons. The Simpsons have been a staple in American television for years since it first aired in 1989. That doesn't mean they haven't had their share of critics. Many claim The Simpsons have not been good for years, while others say it was never good in the first place, citing shows like Family Guy or Rick and Morty as the true kings of adult animation. But is that really fair to The Simpsons and the history they have in creating television? First, we should talk a little bit about the history of The Simpsons. The Simpsons started as a segment on The Tracey Ullman Show in 1987. Matt Groening was hired to create an animated segment for the show. Originally, he planned to just recreate his Life in Hell sketches and comic, but found out it would lead to a ton of licensing problems, so he had to create something original. Existing employee of The Tracey Ullman Show, James L. Brooks, worked with Groening collaboratively to create The Family. Originally, when Groening sketched The Family, he kind of just threw it together and figured the animators would clean it up in post, but they just recreated his drawings line for line, and that's why they look so crude early on. For a couple years, it aired on The Tracey Ullman Show before 1989, while Brooks and Groening planned to pitch the show as a half-hour sketch cartoon for Fox. Fox picked up the show, and notable Simpsons writers were hired, such as Al Jean, Mike Reiss, John Vitti, George Meyer, Jeff Martin, Wallace Wolodarski, and John Swartzwelder. Sam Simon supervised the episode's production. Now The Simpsons employs about 16 writers at a time, who all work to pitch episodes and then later move into the more fine details of the episode. Now, these were just the early writers. The Simpsons has a long history of really dedicated, really convincing writers. Most notably is probably Conan O'Brien, my personal man crush, who got his start in TV working for The Simpsons as a writer before he was penned to Saturday Night Live and then eventually, of course, Late Night. From here, the show cast its voice actors. Dan Castellaneta and Julie Kavner were already Marge and Homer in the Tracey Ullman version of the show, so they just moved over and played the characters there, while Yeardley Smith and Nancy Cartwright were cast as Lisa and Bart respectively, and then a plethora of side characters were cast. Some of those actors who we talked about, like Dan Castellaneta and Nancy Cartwright, played a bunch of side characters, while other side characters were cast with people like Hank Azaria, who fills the roles of Chief Wiggum and also Moe, and controversially Apu, who's got a whole documentary made about him over that. Now, initially, producers thought it would be interesting to not credit the voice actors with their characters to continue to create a sense of mystery over the separation of the characters and their actors, but it was eventually pushed by production that they do have to credit them appropriately so they get credited with their work, as it should be. One of the scary things, though, was that adult cartoons really didn't succeed yet. There wasn't really one in prime time, there wasn't one that was working at all. Animation was viewed as something for children. So how could you make this an adult cartoon that was going to be funny for adults and engaging for adults? And yet somehow The Simpsons succeeded. So how did that happen?
We found this one swimming naked in the fermentarium.
I am the Lizard Queen!
Give her this, and then these.
Oh, thank you, Doctor.
No, I'm not a doctor.
Well, in Mike Reiss's book, The Springfield Confidential, where he talks about his experience writing for The Simpsons, he sums it up in a nice little mnemonic. He says, Matt made the art, Sam made it smart, and Jim gave it heart. So, of course, Matt Groening was responsible for creating the visual world of The Simpsons. He also came up with the characters and the ideas for who they are and what they represent. From the beginning, Matt Groening is responsible for those characters. There's no Simpsons without him. Sam Simon, as the head of the writers, made sure the jokes were not only funny, but that they were intelligent. He made it so that the jokes were a good split of the high and the lowbrow comedy, and that makes the show what it is. It helped create its identity for comedy for years, so there's jokes for everybody present in the show. Lastly, and most importantly in my opinion, was James Brooks giving the show heart. Brooks was just as funny as Simon and Groening were, but he had a special way of understanding how to make the show with humanity and give it a sense of the most iconic moments from the show that we identify with as an audience. So one moment like that always stands out to me as having all three is in the season 8 episode where Homer tells the story of Maggie's birth. The episode is all about Homer having to give up his dream of managing a bowling alley to make enough money to care for their third child. And while it seems ridiculous, the end of the episode is so touching and heartwarming that I can't help but get emotional watching it.
Yes? Are you a new applicant?
Actually, I quit and I came to get my job back.
Through there.
As punishment for your desertion, it's company policy to give you the plague.
Sir, that's the plaque.
Ah, yes, the special demotivational plaque to break what's left of your spirit. Because you see, you're here forever. Don't forget, you're here forever.
I've got to carry the burden all by myself. Hi, honey. How are you?
Well, actually...
Oh, I can't go on with this charade any longer. I hate my job, I hate my life, and ever since I found out about this baby, there's been nothing but bad luck.
My contraction started an hour ago.
It's just in one ear and out the other with you, isn't it, Marge? Okay. Huh?
Homie, I think someone is saying hello.
Hello? Oh, it's a boy. And what a boy!
That's the umbilical cord. It's a girl.
Then why no pictures?
Oh, there are pictures. I keep them where I need the most cheering up.
If you want an idea for where this emotional heart started, Mike Reiss cites the episode Moaning Lisa. The concept for the episode was pitched by James Brooks, who just said that the episode is about Lisa being sad. Over time, they worked out the details together, deciding that Lisa would be depressed and Marge couldn't help her. Then, Lisa finds Bleeding Gums Murphy, who later becomes her jazz mentor, who tells her it's fine to be sad and that helps cheer her up. She channels it into her music. The episode ends with Marge telling Lisa that she should never feel like she should be happy for anyone else, and that if she has to, she'll do the smiling for both of them. It's incredibly moving, and it was a great way to highlight the show in the first season. It also kind of created the character of Lisa, because before Lisa was kind of just a female Bart, according to the writers. And this kind of established her as someone with her own emotions and feelings and plights, and having the kind of discrepancy in the characters and creating them as individual people really helps us as an audience connect with them better. It also helped the writers connect with them better, and it also helped boost the confidence of the writers. Because adult animation had never succeeded, the writer room wasn't exactly in high spirits to be writing the show. A lot of them were betting on the show being canceled after the first 6 weeks, and some were even as optimistic as to say it would make it 13 weeks. Now it's on year 32, which is crazy to think about when all of the writers pretty much believed it had failed. When this episode finally aired, they knew they struck gold.
I'm just wondering, what's the point? Would it make any difference at all if I never existed? How can we sleep at night when there's so much suffering in the world?
Well, come on, Lisa, ride the Homer horsey. Giddy up, whee!
Lisa, honey, why don't we go upstairs and I'll draw you a nice hot bath. That helps me when I feel sad.
Sorry, Dad. I know you mean well.
Thanks for knowing I mean well.
Now we have to look at it in the lens of other adult cartoons. Since the premiere of The Simpsons, adult animation has had a complete hold on television in its own special way. The Simpsons helped pave the way for the success of Family Guy, BoJack Horseman, South Park, and Rick and Morty, just to name a few. Without The Simpsons, it's highly unlikely networks would ever have gambled on these shows and given them a chance to succeed. That doesn't stop people from comparing them, though, with many feelings that there has to be one show that's better than the rest. These shows do things that The Simpsons will not do very frequently. South Park and Family Guy are great examples of constantly pushing the boundaries of comedy and what you can and can't say, for better or worse. Rick and Morty and BoJack Horseman are great examples of pushing the storytelling of adult animation with an increased focus on the humanization of characters. The Simpsons does that fantastically, but BoJack Horseman is a really great example of just the complete breakdown of someone. And I think that I'm not sure you could tell that story in The Simpsons the way that they did in BoJack Horseman, because it's this 5-season epidemic of this happening. And yet, for some reason, I can't help but feel attached to The Simpsons. Maybe it's a symptom of their lovable but dysfunctional family they've shared with us and normalized, or maybe it's the peripheral characters that make me laugh while feeling attached all at the same time. I think personally, as a fan of The Simpsons, I look at the show and my favorite characters are not necessarily members of the immediate family. I think Grandpa Simpson and I think Chief Wiggum are the characters that always make me laugh the hardest whenever I watch an episode, and I always look for an episode that highlights them as the peripheral characters in it. Maybe it's just a combination of all of those things. Ultimately, I think it's a product of the warmth I feel watching The Simpsons. It's hard to explain, but I just feel really cozy when the show's on. It's like bundling up by the fireplace in a winter with a nice warm blanket. Something about The Simpsons will always feel like home. And that feeling can just never be beat.